What's going on, everybody? Maxpowerandperformance coming at you with another nutritional advice video. I just uploaded a protein video. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and check that out. So right now I want to go more into carbohydrates, which is essentially the fuel for your brain and the fuel that you start using once you start exercising. There's a lot of things that could be considered a carbohydrate, and I think that this is where a lot of people run into problems because they assume that, for example, fruit is a carbohydrate. It has a lot of carbohydrates in it. A medium-sized banana, I believe, is around like 25 to 30 grams of carbohydrates. So if you're trying to get in, let's say for somebody on the smaller side, 124 carbohydrates, a banana is basically 30 grams of that. That's a rough example, right? But anything on the label that has total carbohydrates, that's the carbohydrates. A lot of processed items have these things in them. What I try to stick away from is the included added sugars, which are also part of what makes up the carbohydrates in a lot of different products. And I just think that refined sugars are just addicting, and they just get you going, and they just basically keep you hungry. So fruits, all of these fruits have carbohydrates in them. Not to say these are the only fruits that have them in them, but these are the ones I have on hand right now to show you guys. Potatoes are another carbohydrate, very high in starch. I like to boil mine usually before I start cooking them to get the starch out of them. Then we have things like rice, which we all know, grains, whole grains are all carbohydrates. So the serving sizes for rice come on the back of the bag, and you really need to follow this just like the protein intake. You need to be able to identify what it is you're eating. Then we go into pastas, right? Pastas are great. They have large number of carbohydrates, and they do provide a little bit of protein in them. Depending on what kind of pasta you get, you could get regular wheat pasta. Then there are the pastas that are whole grain pastas, and these provide a little bit more protein in them, but nevertheless they also still give you those carbohydrates in there. Any vegetable that you eat will also provide you with carbohydrates. I'm just looking around right here trying to see what else I got on hand. Bread is a carbohydrate, it's a grain. You can't forget that basically everything that has wheat in it is going to be a carbohydrate. And touching on the last video that I uploaded, I just want to make sure that you all understand that the first thing I try to get my clients to do is basically up their protein intake via chicken, protein powder, just because when we up the protein, typically we'll feel fuller, we'll feel more equipped for the day because it does have a high satiety index on there, and it just keeps you from overeating, I believe. But there's a lot of grains that do provide nutritional value, such as the whole grains. The whole grains give you all the fiber you need, right? And it gives you the energy you need for workouts. Right now I'm heating up some of my soup. I'm heating up some soup right now, basically to get some carbs in before my workout. Cereals are another thing. A lot of carbohydrates in cereals, so you gotta be careful with those. Oatmeal, carbohydrates. Any chip that you have around, that's a carbohydrate. And it's very easy to overeat these, especially when we are not scaling them out. Tomato sauces. What is tomato sauce? It's made out of tomato. Tomato has carbohydrates in it. For example, one serving of this sauce is 13 grams of carbohydrates, right? And it has a good like 2 grams of protein, so that's pretty off on that scale. But basically, carbs are anything that is not considered a protein. Typically for fats, which I'll make another video on that, those are oils. And a lot of meat products like this do come with some fat in it. Hardly any fruits come with fat in them. Potatoes hardly any fat. Rice, hardly any fat. It's what you add to them that makes them more fatty. Just like, for example, fried rice. I love fried rice. They got to use a lot of fat to fry that rice. So that's what makes it so high in fat. And in adding the fat, you add calories. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on what is considered a carb and what do carbs do for us. I mentioned it at the start. It's fuel for our brain and fuel for our body for the exercises. Just remember, we usually try to eat carbohydrates before exercising and then some protein after it, just so that you can basically fuel before, and then at the end of the workout, you're going to be giving your muscles something to build with, you know. So protein powder, chicken, yogurt if you want. You could also replenish some carbohydrates that you used up. Basically, that's it for the video. Yeah, like, just wanted to touch on what's a carb. A lot of people don't know fruits have carb in them, vegetables have carbs in them, rice, whole grains, potatoes have carbs in them. Like I said a little bit before, try to stay away from anything high in included added sugars, just because that's like the white sugar that is basically, I feel, addicting. You know, we have salt, which is another white sugar that's addicting, and sugar, which is another addicting substance here in the kitchen. So this is Max Power. Thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope that it gives you a better understanding of what a carb is and how to use a carb. Y'all have a good day. Stay blessed.